Hello and welcome to On Second Street, where today we're going to be talking about Canada's economy. Specifically, what do we need to be doing to make sure it performs as best as it can be? We've got two great speakers lined up here today to join us and unpack this issue. Ian Lee is an associate professor at the Sprott School of Business in Ottawa, and Dan Breznitz is a professor at the University of Toronto's Munk School of Global Affairs. Thank you both for joining me today to talk about this important topic. Obviously, we need a strong economy. It helps all of us in our day-to-day lives. But I noticed during the election, I constantly would go on social media and see these images showing that Canada's per capita GDP growth just wasn't doing very well compared to our peer nations over the past decade. So, Professor Lee, I'll start with you. Why should Canadians care if our GDP per capita is not growing as well as it could be?
Well, because it's a critical metric. I know some people dismiss GDP, but GDP is the totality of all the wages and all the incomes and all the salaries of every last person in society. So as I like to tell my students, I think my income is important. I think the income of every person is important because that's how they pay for their groceries or their rent or their mortgage. So GDP per capita controls for size differences in the population, and our GDP has per capita has been declining, I think, quite precipitously. And now the underlying driver of that is the collapse in productivity. And to quote someone I don't normally quote, which is Paul Krugman, the Nobel Prize laureate, productivity is pretty well the only driving force that will produce an increase in real GDP per capita. So our productivity is collapsing because of economic policies over the last many years, but that accelerated in the last 9 years, that have contributed mightily to the decline in productivity and thus are slowing GDP per capita.
Thank you for that. And Professor Breznitz, I want to get your take on this. I mentioned this graphic. I'm sure you've seen it. It showed that we weren't performing that well compared to our peer nations. Is this something that you're concerned about?
Yeah, I'm quite concerned about it. Indeed, I wrote quite a lot about it. And when I served as a Clifford Clark economist in our beloved Department of Finance under Chrystia Freeland, we were very, very worried about it. And it has only gotten worse. As my colleague here said, the issue is productivity. And the real issue in productivity, both on the public sector and the private sector, is that we as a nation have forget to engage with knowledge, both in terms of buying and using new technology and capital equipment, but also in terms of R&D and actually using our great ideas, great people, great education to come up with ways in which we can both become more effective, more productive, but also offer new and improved products and services. And again, the private sector is in serious trouble, but the public sector is not that much better, if not worse. And we have to change it.
Well, let's unpack that point a little bit, Professor Breznitz. What do you think the government's role should be? What would be the policies that you think that we need to see happen to increase our GDP and get at some of the issues that you just mentioned?
Sure. So first thing first, let's start with a good thing. We have invested a huge amount of people in making the Canadian people the most highly educated people on earth, K-12 and universities. So we have some, if not the best human capital on earth. Now we have to use it in a way that actually use it advantage. We also have massive resources. Again, we can just dig them from the ground, do nothing, shape and send them somewhere else where we do things on it, basically making it to real products, and then we buy those products for a long period of time. We can even do worse, which is exactly what we do, is dig those things from the ground using technology somebody else developed instead of developing our own, paying them royalties so we can actually use our own resources, then sending them the resources and then paying them again for the final product. We have not done anything of actually starting to have any engagement with knowledge, innovation, growth, and higher productivity, which would lead to higher GDP for the last 20-something years.
Okay, well, listen, when we come back, we're going to continue to unpack this issue and look at ways that, roles that the government should be playing in helping to unleash our nation's economic potential. We'll be back with more after this commercial break.